Thank you, Holly, so much for sharing your gifts with us. We are blessed. Welcome all to the light and love that is Unity of Lawrence. In Unity, we begin everything with prayer. So let's take a centering breath and open to the divine in all of us as we listen to this prayer. We celebrate the divine source that lives and breathes within us. We accept ourselves without judgment and accept each other. We acknowledge our place in the environment and care for our sacred mother. We carry light, share peace, and live in joy and thanksgiving. And so it is. Amen. Our prayer chaplains are trained to hold sacred space and pray with us one-on-one. If there is anything in your heart to be held in prayer, we invite you to see a chaplain following today's service up here at the front of the sanctuary. And now, our other thing we love to open with, and that is music. So if we will rise and join together in We Come Together in the name of love. Take a look at the person next to you. Say God loves you and I love you too. Now feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. We come together. We come together. In the name of love. We come together. We come together, we come together, in the name of love. Now look at the person next to you. Say, I recognize the God in you. Feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together, we come together. We come together in the name of love. We come together. We come together. We come together in the name of love. All right, let's greet each other safely. Every creed and color, as we reunite, we'll honor the God in each other. Take a look at the person next to you. Say namaste and I bow to you. Feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together, we come together, we come together, in the name of love. We come together, we come together, we come together, in the name of love. We come together. is. And so as we come together in the name of love, let's affirm together unity's founding principle. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God, the source of all good. Now our Unity of Lawrence vision statement together. United in divine love and joy, we celebrate a peaceful and abundant world for all. And our mission statement, we are a thriving spiritual community, sharing love, building bridges, and inspiring transformation, and so it is. Now please welcome our special music guest, Folk in the Flow.
Sun is up and time's at hand. There's a stir across the land, and so begins another day on life's highway, on city streets, down country roads. Like the stream, the people flow. There's bread to win and tolls to pay on life's highway. There is hope with every turn, a bridge to build, a bridge to burn. Here's hoping you never go astray on life's highway, 'cause we are young, then we're old, passing through, then passing on, like the roses bloom and fade on life's highway, step by step, round by round, never knowing where we're bound, from the cradle to the grave on life's highway. There is hope with every turn, a bridge to build, a bridge to burn. Here's hoping you never go astray on life's highway. The sun is up, time's at hand. There's a stir across the land, and so begins another day on life's highway. And so begins another day on life's highway.
You folk in the flow. Yes, I'm ready for a road trip now. Well, we are especially blessed today to have with us Dr. Danica M. Moore, a shoe-obsessed sports fanatic, experienced scholar, practitioner, nonprofit founder, and lifelong learner with demonstrated history working in education management systems. She possesses highly recognized skills in program evaluation, curriculum and program development, research and educational leadership. Her early education career began in spiritual organizations at the age of 10, redesigning youth education content and lessons for K through 5 students. Later, she became involved with K through 5 summer school opportunities for a public school district in a rural area. These experiences created a foundation for her BSE in elementary education from the University of Kansas, followed by an MSE focused on curriculum and instruction with an emphasis in TESOL. Most recently, she completed her doctorate in organizational change at Vanderbilt University in 2021. While she has taught every age from toddlers to adults, one thing she has learned is that great teaching can reach any age and adds to any experience. Combining her passion for young learners and combining her passion for young learners and creating and designing meaningful learning activities. Dr. Moore joined the youth education staff at Unity of Lawrence almost 16 years ago and has worked her way up from a nursery attendant to coordinating the youth ed department, where she designs, teaches, and shapes young minds through anti-racist spirituality. If you were to ask her why she does what she does, she will gladly tell you. Everything I do is for the kids, no matter where I am or what I am doing. We are blessed to welcome Dr. Danica Moore.
Good morning, Unity. It is an absolute pleasure to be here on this specific day. So today, I'm coming to you with a message titled Grandma's Pearls, and there's no better day I could think of. The original date that I was asked to consider was in January, but I couldn't quite put my thoughts together. Kathy offered February 20th instead, and without even thinking, I knew that had to be the day to be able to do two things at once. Honor my most spiritual grounded elder in my life that has impacted me to where I am to this day, my maternal grandmother, Perlina Owet Namor, on what would be her 93rd birthday today, and also to be able to stand here in this month of Black History Month and celebrate someone who is truly living Black history that I got to grow up with and have impact my every single day as a young kid with just spirituality and prayer and learning what in me could give impact to the world and shed God's light. So it is an honor to be here, and so I want to bring you Grandma's Pearls, a tribute to wisdom to my grandmother, Perlina Owet Namor, today. So to get started, the word elders is a big word in the community where I come from, and elders were typically just seen as someone that was older. And so recently at work, I referenced someone as an elder, to which she said, "Oh, please don't consider me an elder just yet." And so in my community, that was a way of respect. And so I went to dictionary.com because I was confused, like, what are the age gaps to elder? Because I knew from different categories and groupings, I think I'm still considered a young adult. I'm not quite sure. Usually they say that stops at 35, and I'm definitely beyond that. So I guess I still claim it. I'm not quite sure where my category is, but I do know that people who have lived longer than me, have more life experience than me, they definitely sit in my mind as elders. And so dictionary.com told me that someone who's older and has a higher ranking in life in terms of years lived. But also, they had this other part that I was like, oh, that's what it is. So an influential member of a community. Now, when I was growing up, I saw my grandmother do all these amazing things, and I thought, that's not influence. People just like her. I was the kid that got the cool grandma that I hated sharing. I hated when other people called her grandma. I was bitter inside for a long time. As I got older, I realized, like, it's kind of cool having the cool grandma. I had the same thing about having the cool mom, too. I didn't like that at all either. And so because my mom and my grandma are twins, it almost fit that I was upset that I had the cool grandparent and the cool mom to share with the school community, with everyone in the neighborhood. I didn't like it. But I grew to love it because I got to really see this idea of being an influence in the community in a different light. But it took me getting out of high school, later past grad school, to see what influence really looked like, and that influence was guided by a spiritual light. And I'm blessed because I know that in this day and age, many people have elders who are steeped in what I would call elder toxicity. Different ways of being that we would say are not okay. They're not productive to a spiritual grounding in 2022. But my grandmother was not one of those. She carried it, embodied this thing, this whole piece of God's love that unfolded every single time I came home. Even when I brought my dog, I didn't think I'd be a dog owner, but I convinced myself that I could have brought a pet snake home, and my grandmother would have given that snake God's love. So I learned a lot about her influence, more things about her influence after she passed away than I knew when she was living. But while she was living, I do know one thing for sure. She had different phrases, sayings, beings, spiritual groundings that she carried with her everywhere she went, and she was always saying them. Oftentimes, they served as some sort of, at the dinner table joke between my siblings and I. Little kids, we like to make fun of things we don't understand. That was us. We mimicked her voice, all the different things, everything she embodied, the way she walked. And so now, even as older folks, my siblings, my mom, my uncles, we all still hold on to those memories because we realize that that is something that she gifted us. So I decided to focus on 3 pearls that she would say all the time when I was a kid. But I looked at them a little bit deeper and realized, like, this was Grandma trying to give me spiritual guidance without actually saying that's what she was doing. And so from an early age, the first pearl I remember was, we had recently moved to a smaller community. And my grandma came to visit. We just got settled in the house. My sister was in school. I was not yet school age, but I was that kid that liked to clean. And on this specific day, I discovered that cleaning was cool if I sparked the initiative. Someone else tells me to do it, I don't like it so much anymore. So my little brother was there, and my grandma said, your mom needs you to vacuum. I believe it was the living room. And so I was just like, but I don't want to, Grandma. And Grandma said, it requires work to make a house a home because we had just moved into this house. My young mind was really thinking, I don't like this house. And I really didn't. I remember not liking the wood trim on the staircases. I remember not liking the fact that the house was plain, boring white. There was so many things about the house I didn't like. I didn't want to make this house home. Plus, I was also that young kid that was just navigating through this part about we had just moved. So I'm going to act out for a little bit, too, while we're here. And now that Grandma's come to visit us, I'm going to definitely act out because I know that Grandma has no angry bone in her body. So whatever I do or say, she's going to comfort it in love. And that's exactly what she did. So as a kid, I heard this phrase, you work to make a house a home. And over time, I could not figure out, like, what's that mean? But as I got older, I discovered my grandma, everything I got to watch her do from the time I could remember that she was my grandma to the time she passed away, everything she did was her putting joy to everything. I don't recall my grandma, and maybe it never existed, I have to ask my mom, but from the time of my kindergarten years, I don't recall my grandma ever working for something that required a paycheck. She didn't go to a daily job. Everything that you see on the screen are things that she did plus more. She was a deaconess at the church. She helped with the food. She led meditations. And then when she passed away, I always knew she had a garden, but when she passed away, people came from all over and talked about this community garden that fed an entire community we knew nothing about. And were able to go stand on her property and like show us the markings of, yeah, the corn row was here. And that was something I didn't know. So she not only was serving her family, and on the pictures there, you see all the things that she's doing in the kitchen. That's her rolling dough. So she was an avid baker, crocheter. She wrote for the local newspaper. She had a column in there that was not like any other column in the paper. She was an amazing partner to my grandfather in their 47 or 67 years of marriage up until she passed away. And so what I discovered was everything that she did, she was very disciplined to a T. Her biological clock ran at 6 a.m. every single morning, no alarm clock. It was the worst part of staying with Grandma on weekends. There was no such thing as sleeping in. But her biological clock rang, and the first thing she did was she ran and she got 3 things. She had a little Precious Moments meditation box, I call it. It wasn't really Precious Moments, it was something else. But she would grab a card out of that box that had an affirmation or some kind of scripture to affirm herself for the day. She would pray, and she would grab her book called The Word, and she would read that. When she was done, she went in the kitchen, and that began the first of 1 of 3 homemade meals that she would make every single day for all the grandchildren, anyone who stopped by. So she was always busy, but when she looked at everything she did, when I looked at things that she did, I realized she wasn't just doing things to do them for herself. She loved everything she did. I don't ever remember her complaining about doing anything. Most things she took on herself, but she also built in time for rest. And in doing that, what she was doing was she found joy in serving other people. And then I discovered this house that she was making be a home. She wasn't talking about a physical structure, but young 5-year-old me trying to back in the living room didn't know that. She was talking about this idea of we are placed on earth, our Creator puts us here, and we have a duty to fulfill in a way that brings us joy in everything we do so that we can be fulfilled while also being of service to other people who are in need, and even those who don't even know they're in need, because she did so much for people that probably didn't know they had a need. It was amazing how many people were hungry suddenly when they showed up at Grandma's house. But there was always a pot of something on the stove. And when her hands couldn't knead homemade dough anymore or roll a pie crust, she simply switched over. She took her sister's crystal candy jars that she inherited, and she began filling them with every kind of candy any guest would want. My dog even had a candy jar in the house as well. Yeah. So if this idea of service, if we are here for a certain amount of time, this is our home. But for my grandma, home wasn't just labor. Work wasn't just labor. For her, when she said you have to work to make the house a home, her life was a house. The community she lived in was a house, and she was working to make it a home. And that home needed to be filled with warmth and love. So she embodied that by making sure she gave exactly what she expected to receive. So that included cookies for everyone. That included driving up to people's houses and just saying, hey, waving. She was all over the place. And I saw her heart in every single thing she did. To hear her complain was a very rare thing. So if this idea of making a house a home is about the community we live in and serve in, the question to think about is this. If everything that we do is some sort of ministry to reflect God's love, what is your ministry? Are you investing with everything you do? And does it actually feel like home? Is it warmth and love? Or does it feel like labor? Sometimes I show up to my job, and while I love the people I work with, sometimes the place I work in is not always the greatest. And I have to think, is this the best place to root my spiritual love and make this house a home? Or do I need to move on somewhere else where I can feel that warmth that I give and receive? There's a quote about services that weren't we pay to be here on earth. And I truly believe that in God's light, the service that we give that fulfills us automatically overflows into other people. But the critical thing is, do we have to wait till our funerals to hear people talk about that? I got to see my grandma receive all kinds of accolades for her whole lifetime, and it was because every single day she woke up at 6 a.m. Her goal was, I'm going to make this community a home, not just for herself, but everybody. And that's what God's love should do. Her second pearl, one day I was at grandma's house. This point I'm in middle school. A piece of trash fell off the table. I was taking my plate to the kitchen. And of course, you know, teenagers, we do things we want to do. And so I was going to walk over the trash, go finish in the kitchen, and return. To which my grandmother says, can you pick that up? I said, I'll come back for it later, Grandma. She told me, looking straight in my eyes, she said, the quickness of your actions shows the depth of your intent. Now, middle school me, that's a lot of words. Now, I use this quote all the time because as I got older, when I figured out what she was talking about, I was like, oh, yeah, she got me. I actually said this quote last week speaking to high schoolers working on a leadership summit, and they were all like, ooh, because they realized what this meant. So she stayed ready. My grandma had prepped cookie dough a year in advance. It was frozen. She was always making dough, pie crust. She even would recycle. I'm convinced this day my grandmother invented recycling. I really do. Because she would take the styrofoam trays that meat comes on. She would sanitize and sterilize them, put them in a foil coating, and have cabinets for days. And those were her cookie serving trays for her bakery. But the bakery didn't cost anything. The bakery was free. So there was always a cookie platter to be given. If someone had a baby, someone was sick, my grandma was in the kitchen, pies, cookies, cakes, what do you want? She was also known for these gingerbread cookies that had in the shape of a rabbit, and she put little sprinkles represent the tail. Everybody loved those. So coming to grandma's house, I expected cookies, but what I didn't know was the cookies were always for other people. It needed to be my birthday or a holiday for me to have my favorite cake, cookies. So she was all about the service. And so she was very quick to love. She had a supply of greeting cards and messages. When she passed away, I actually brought 5 clear bags back to Lawrence because I told Mom I'd help go through things to figure out what could be shredded, what was confidential in a way. And I discovered 2 of the 5 bags I brought were the greeting card and messages, the message cards that she would stock up on. She would grab every single holiday sale, all the boxes, 36 in a box. She had a card for everything. You sneeze, you got to get well card. You had a baby, you got a card that same day. And so she had a card she was going to write. She loved to write. She would stamp it, mail it. She didn't care. You were going to get that. So she didn't need technology. She didn't live to see this pandemic, but I'm pretty sure she would have made out just fine because she was very comfortable with that old school phone. 1, 2, and she would sit by that phone. If she was not cooking, watching her favorite soap operas, out and about in the community, she was sitting by that phone waiting for someone to call her, or she would make the phone call herself. She had the most amazing greetings. We used to mock her greetings. You could always tell who was on the phone by what she said. If she said, hey, doll, that was a sister. If she said, how you, that meant that it was my grandma on my dad's side because they were good friends as well. So she thought about this idea of quickness of actions because she was very, very quick with it. Not only did she stock up these greeting cards, and she donated to every single foundation you could think of. You know those ones that come out about like Christmas time where you send like $25, you get a little roll of like address labels? There was a bag of those too. I have them in my house right now because she was going to make sure she gave and also got these labels to go with every single season and theme. So when she would give these cards out, she had to write a whole message. You would get an entire message card, not just her name signed and mail it. No, she was putting some work in on these cards. And so when I thought about the quickness of your action shows the depth of your intent, I realized in my grad school years, she was talking about the intent of your character. How quickly I picked up a piece of paper was to model my integrity. If I said I would go back and come and do it, was I really going to? And so when I think about God life, God's spirit, that quote, what it meant, the depth of this pearl is simply this. She was saying that I was a change agent and I'll always be enough. That one thing of picking up that trash at that moment was enough to be a change agent that I could go to school and do that same thing and impact someone else. Now, what didn't happen is this. School culture didn't mix with that well. So here I am, third grade art class, and a marker rolled off the table, but the timer went off that said we had to freeze and wait for the clamp direction. Well, in my head, what did I hear? The quickness of your action shows depth of your intent, and so I pick up that marker and I don't freeze, and I get after-school detention. So then my mom has to come to school and discuss, oh no, that's Danica. So we had to have a clear conversation that night about the differences of there's a home we're trying to build, and some spaces won't welcome it, but we're going to show our God light anyway. So I was never in trouble that day. I think the teacher was more in trouble than I was when my mom pulled up. But I got to exhibit everything that Grandma taught me in a way that was positive and reproduce the light. So when I think about what I model, I have to ask myself the question, does what I do model the intent of my spiritual values? And is it consistent or is it contextual in a way that naturally attracts others to my God light? Everything my grandma did attracted people to the point that I became the jealous granddaughter that I had to share her with yet another person. But in the end of it all, that is what made her her, and that is the same light that I want to exhibit in my community to make this world, this community, a home for me that's full of warmth and joy, and that all depends on the quickness. If you know who your spiritual character is to be, there shouldn't be any thought about it. And that's what Grandma was trying to tell me that day with the paper. I shouldn't have to go and come back to it. There are just some things you just do. And that's what she did. She was always prepared for every occasion. She had blankets that she crocheted. If you had a baby, she would come to you and say, what color do you want? And the blanket would deliver with a blanket and 2 matching pillows, all crocheted, wrapped and sealed in plastic bags that she had stored away. That's how prepared she was because she knew, I want people to feel that love right away. I don't want to delay it at all. And that's the world that we live in, that when we exercise our unity principles, we are trying to be a light with no delay that people can see and come to right away. Her third pearl was her favorite proverb. She always read it. I loved it when she would pull the card out of the meditation box because she pretended to read it. She wasn't reading it, she was quoting it. So her pearl was Proverbs 3:5, which says, trust in God with all thine heart and lean not to thine own understanding. She would say that over and over, and I would never know what that meant. Like, what is my own understanding? My grandma was so spiritually connected through prayer. I can not count the number of times that as I got older, when she would come to visit me in Lawrence with my mom, when I would go home, it got to the point that we would tuck her into bed, and once you close the door, 2 things were going to happen. One, she was going to pray for all of her grandchildren, all of her nieces, all of her siblings, all of her church family members, anyone she could think of. If she passed them in Walmart and knew their name, she was going to put that name in the prayer just to make sure they were covered in wherever they went. Then she was going to have an entire concert in her bedroom, just laying in her bed. She loved to sing. And when she had no more words, she had sounds. And we knew what all those sounds meant because we got to model them and we got to see them in action when she would be watching her soap operas. If she said, that meant that you shouldn't have done what you did on that TV screen. Whatever was happening with the characters on Young and the Restless, it meant they shouldn't do what they did. So as kids, we knew that sound very well. We knew the She had a sound for every single thing. She also was clear in affirmation. So these 3 pearls I'm giving you today, she had way more than these. But her affirmations, she knew that everywhere she went, she was going to speak life and she was going to speak light. She had a spiritual intuition like no one I've ever seen because she was that closely in tune with the Spirit. I remember one day that they left us, my parents and her left to go to some sort of, I don't know if it was a concert, and so we decided to walk to the park with my great aunt and her grandchildren, and somehow playing basketball. It was actually pretty cold to be on a basketball court. I somehow fell trying to get the ball and landed on my arm and had to go get my arm cast from my knuckles all the way to my elbow. So when they finally reached my parents, because again, no cell phones, my grandma came to the hospital with my mom, and she said, something told me you were going to be the one to get hurt. She said that all the time to me, though, because I was the accident-prone kid. But she typically knew, though. Sometimes I would travel all the way home, make the drive in my college years. She lived by herself in a neighborhood that was behind a hospital that was like a hospital residency because of her lifeline button. And it was amazing how she just knew I was coming because I always thought I would surprise her. But I would pull up at 11 o'clock, midnight, hoping I would just like wake her up and scare her with the window. The front door was always unlocked, always unlocked. She literally knew when I was coming home, and she would say, I covered you in prayer on your trip home so that you would be safe when you got here. So that was the love I got to see. My grandma was very slow to anger. It brewed inside of her, but she never acted out of anger. You would never know that she was beefing with two women at the church or the lady that cut her off in traffic because she had some way to cover it with some sort of affirmation. She wasn't a big cursor, but she did love to cry. But she typically cried tears of joy. She cried every time she was excited. It didn't matter what happened. I could win the spelling bee, she would cry. I could bring her my dog to visit, she would cry. And so that is the one thing I got gifted when she passed away, is this ability to just cry for absolutely no other reason than joy. Sometimes it's quite annoying, but I do realize why she did it. So when she had no words and just songs and prayers, she never tried to hold back her tears ever. She actually believed there was healing and spirituality flowed from her tears. Her tears were able to water the ground they landed on. They were just a release. And so they also provided her spiritual anchoring, and she believed to be able to shed those tears in public spaces with other people was a way to bring light to them, knowing that she could release that on their behalf and that they would be okay. And she had an understanding that God brings peace despite the hardships or the unknowns. So if nothing else that she could do besides groaning and moaning her noises and sounds, she was going to sing, because that was the one thing that she knew would help her get through hard times. So as an adult, getting to have her visit me here, I would sit outside her bedroom door and listen to all the songs that she would sing. It was a whole concert. I would try to record it, but it never came through the door. She never asked people to pray for her because she knew that she had enough prayer covering for herself, but she was willing to cover herself and everyone there. So lean not to her own understanding. She understood that there's a Perlina understanding and there was a spiritual Perlina understanding. And so that understanding grounded her. So when things happened, she was the one to be able to process it, release those tears, and she was always using her tears to honor people and celebrate them. So when I think of my spiritual journey, now that I've inherited these tears, that is my goal, is to be able to let those tears shed, to be able to release a spiritual intuition and a covering and affirmation that brings hope and light, that there is some healing in those. One of her favorite songs to sing was called Bringing in the Sheaves. My brother and I used to make fun of that song because my grandma had a vast vocabulary, and half the time, even my mother would say she made up most of the words she said. For example, she called a couch a dufo. One day I got gully and asked her, spell it, because my mom didn't know how to spell it either. And so she said D-U-F-F-O. When she got to the L, the whole family was like, whoa, 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 this can't be right. And then she finished it D. So I looked at my mom. My mom Googled it before Google was a thing. I guess it would have been Yahoo, AOL, I don't know. And my mom said, yep, that's it. So we knew that she had a vast vocab. So this song, Bring in the Sheaves, me and my brother used to make fun of, like, Grandma, what is a sheave? And she would never answer us. She just ignored us. That's the typical grandma thing to do. And so we would always mock it because the way she would sing the song, the she part had a high-pitched yip at the end of it. And so we would be riding in the back car singing that song, hoping that Grandma would stop us by telling us what a sheave was. So I actually looked it up one day and realized, okay, sheaves are when you bundle wheat. But then I also looked further in history, and there was a point in time where sheaves were this symbol for people, like this idea of harvesting and bringing together people. And I will say that that is definitely something my grandmother did. And the photos you can see there, those are all different ceremonies that were there to honor her in different times of her life, different honors and recognitions she had. there were always people who came out that could recall stories of the cookie tray she gave them when they were 9 years old, their birthday cake, when she did their hair, when she brought them vegetables. There was always people coming from near and far to tell these stories every time they saw her. She was auntie to everybody. I don't know why, but she was. She was a small-framed woman. But yeah, why she's everybody's aunt, I really don't know, because for most of them, she was actually like a grandmother or great-grand. There was a lot of terms that she should have been, but she was aunt to everyone. So this bringing in the sheaves thing was about bringing together people. And in Unity, Light, and Love, this idea of our mission to transform and bring about this transformation we want to see, it starts internal and it moves external. Bringing in the sheaves is the people that we bring together who are attracted by our God light because our labor and our joy and our love has brought warmth and made the world around us a home that we can say that we've done our part. It's because we have an ability to be able to have quick actions that show the depth of our spiritual character and our intent with that. And it's because we don't lean to our own understanding, we lean to God's understanding. And that in itself will bring the sheaves together. So with that, I would like to close in just reminding you all that in what you are doing with your God light, if you can live by these three pearls as they model much of our unity principles, that we too can bring in the sheaves and bring people together that are working with us in this idea of transforming and making this God light shine far beyond unity is a building, but unity is a global mission and word values. So thank you for your time today, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Be yourself, you're just you and no one else. It takes us a while just to get it. And we all grow, yes, we move on down the road. Looking back, it's just a reflection. We're here right now, there's nowhere that we're going. Living in the present, we're just flowing to the movement. Living in the present, we're just flowing to the movement. We're ourselves, we're just us with no one else. It took us a while, but now we get it. And we've all grown and moved on down the road. We did it together with a common vision. We're here right now, there's nowhere that we're going. Living in the present, we're just flowing to the movement. Living in the present, we're just flowing to the movement.
in our minds as we move forward each and every day. Sowing in the morning, sowing seeds of kindness, sowing in the noontide and the dewy eve, waiting for the harvest and the time of reaping. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. Snowing in the sunshine, sowing in the shadows, fearing neither clouds nor winter's chilling breeze. By and by the harvest, and the labor ended, we shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. Going forth with weeping, sowing for our Creator, though the loss sustained, our spirit often bleeds. When our weeping's over, God bids us welcome, we shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. Bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. Bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves.
Takiwasin, this is the place for all my relations. Bring celebration through meditation, giving thanks for all of creation. We are so provided for. We are so provided for. All of the blessings I have received, how could they have been bestowed upon me? So I'll put it all back in the ground, back in the soil where I am found. It all started walking, talking, skin to skin. Something holy moves here on the land. It is my brothers and my sisters' hands. It is the way we make our plans. We don't make them. Well, this is it. What is this? This is Eden. Eden is where I live and where I give my whole being to the Great Spirit. We are waiting and we're on our way. Takiwasin, this is the place for all my relations, to bring celebration through meditation, giving thanks for all of creation. We are so provided for. We are so provided for. We are so provided for. We are so provided for.
Well, speaking of providing for, thank you, Danica and Folk in the Flow, for providing inspiration. And as our ushers come forward for our time of thanks, I invite you to join me as we hold our gifts to this community in our hands and love in our hearts. Let's affirm together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. And as the love offering is collected, let's join Holly in singing Return Again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to what you are, return to who you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. And as our ushers come forward, here's our prayer of thanks to listen to. We are grateful and we bless the flow of good that supports our unity community. We bless the givers who give their time, talent, and treasure. We stand in the knowing that the flow of good goes forth only to return again and again. And so it is. Amen. A special welcome to our guests today, whether in the room or on the Zoom. We do appreciate you joining us, and if you would like more information about the Unity Movement and Unity of Lawrence, pick up a welcome packet in the lobby or swing by during office hours. The Lunch Bunch is meeting at Jason's Deli today at 3140 Iowa Street. All are welcome. Please join Robin Goff in visioning new leadership for the Light Center. A person with Unity credentials is preferred. We know that Spirit hears this request, and the perfect people are on their way before the end of this year, and so it is. Our weekly meditation group meets on Tuesdays at 6:30 here in the sanctuary. All are welcome, and we do wear masks. The February Drum Circle will meet next Sunday, February 27th at 1:30 in the sanctuary. Join us with a drum or just come and listen. Again, please remember to wear your masks. And next week, please join us as our own Karen Langsford brings us the message, Love is All You Need. Special music with C.S. Luxem. And now it is time to sing in our youth. They're on their way, so here we go.
Why don't we stand up and welcome them?
You are walking in the light, in the light, in the light. You are walking in the light of God. In the light, 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 in the light of God. As the light, as the light, you are walking as the light of God. As the light, 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 as the light of God. You are walking in the light, in the light, in the light. You are walking in the light of God. In the light, 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 in the light of God.
Can we turn around? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Our affirmation today is what? Can you tell us? I can communicate in healthy ways if I turn from evil words. Very good. And we're using the megaphone so you guys can hear us. So healthy communications that we talked about has 5 points that we discussed. It requires listening, asking questions, centering others, explaining our emotions, and finding solutions. One example that was told in our lesson today was a story about 2 ladies sitting on a porch. One was listening to crickets chirping, and the other one was listening to a choir that was singing down the road. The one says, "Oh, they sang so beautiful. It just sounds so heavenly." And the other one says, "Yes, they did. They make beautiful noise when they're rubbing their legs together." Something went wrong in the story. Or did it? We found out that it didn't go wrong. It's just the fact that we... Very good. So it's very important that we stay on the same page when it comes to communicating.
And so, congregation, let's rub our cricket legs together. And let us bless our youth, saying, "We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you." And now let's sing the peace song together. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God our Creator, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my song now. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And as we lower our hands, the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God washes over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. God bless grandmas.